Shout out to all my Patreon members and my YouTube membership members. Spookify, Cooper, STVNSF, Sato is Love, Lord_Yurifan, Martin, Crazy, and Jack M. I really appreciate the added support. Thank you guys. So the big question is, can you use a graffiti word or name that's already taken by someone else? You have to understand before you start graffiti that there is most likely someone out there using the same word as you. If not the same word, a very similar word to yours in terms of letters or the way they are pronounced. And for example, common words like king, ace, crims. There is at least 100 people around the world are using those names. A quick search online will tell you the most common graffiti names, so just avoid those ones to begin with. But in saying that, do you really have to do a bunch of research to find out if the said name you are thinking of using is either taken by someone or almost taken by someone? It really depends on a few things. There are only very specific instances where it will matter. If you're choosing a name for the first time, don't choose a name that's already being used by a graffiti writer in your town or city. Being that you are both within the same scene, that person who is already predominantly up is not going to appreciate someone with the exact same name getting up in their city. Sometimes two people with the same name can coexist within the same city, but honestly I think it's pretty pointless to do that because then either you or that writer will be copying off each other. Best thing to do in this context would be to go around your city and take in and simply start learning the names of people in your city, so you make sure you choose a word that isn't taken. That also goes for writers that are no longer getting up. Learn your local history if you can, but try not to use any major writers' names in your city. If the word you have chosen for yourself is a unique word or a made-up word, then it's going to be much easier on yourself. Another thing I want to mention is you don't want to use a graffiti name that an internationally known writers either online or through media. You don't want to have a graffiti name where anything that you do is going to automatically be attributed to someone else just because you have the same name. Some examples would be Resk12 or Weckman. Writing those names would be pretty silly because people will easily be able to tell that you aren't those writers and you'll just look like a groupie or a wannabe. So the best advice I can give you, if you're using a graffiti name that someone is using but they are from a different country or even a different state and no one gives any flack for it in your city, or if people aren't telling you you're going to get crossed out for quote unquote stealing another writer's name, then by all means keep writing it. But also in saying all of that, it's only when you start out that this really worries people. If for example you've been writing for 5 years and you find out another person is writing the same thing from across the globe, I can guarantee you at that point it's way too late to worry about, and that person probably hasn't heard of you either. And not to mention, if you've been using that said word for 5 years or so, I'm sure you're at a certain skill point within your graffiti endeavors that you'd subjectively be able to burn them in terms of style. So long story short, don't use anyone's graffiti name if they are well known, either in cities or online. Now getting into how to choose a graffiti name, how to actually find and create a graffiti name once you've established that you're not going to be taking that name from someone else. So there's a fair few methods that you can do to find and think of a name. Most obvious one would be go get a dictionary and flip to a random page and just choose a word. But if you want a unique name, you have to think outside the box. So basically, thinking outside the box in terms of thinking of your own graffiti name could be so random and just so weird. So for example, you could just look around in the room that you're in at the moment. See, for example, I've got a clock in my room. Clock, you could use clock as your graffiti name and work upon that. Or, you know, you can be more in depth and mix it up a bit. There's a lamp, lampy, lumpy, luppy. Just think of random names and words that you could possibly use. The hardest thing is though, when you do find a name, you do have to work upon it. Then you also have to work on, oh, can I make this a tag? Can I use these letters to make a tag out of it? Can I make a decent looking throw up with these letters? Everything has to kind of flow together. There's heaps of weird ways that you can think of your graffiti or sticker name, even if you start with a name and then eventually you work upon that name that you've given yourself and it turns into something even better. But at the end of the day, it's what you want to name yourself, the graffiti name and street name that you want to use. Basically coming down to it, you just have to think of a random word and work upon that. Even if you choose a word that's well known, you can eventually migrate into a better name for your graffiti once you work with that name for a while. You can think of just random words, put them together. I know lamp clock, for example, is stupid, or some people might think that's actually cool, but at the same time, you can work upon that and discover a name that's really good for yourself. I hope this video helped you guys out. If you watched all the way to the end, leave a little comment saying, wow, recording.
how graffiti influenced video games. I actually had a lot of fun creating that video, and I generally think that I did an alright job. So I figured I'd just promote it on this video. Thank you very much for the support, guys.
The graffiti aspect in that game at face value,